I've already talked about cars that were cancelled before production on this channel, twice in fact, and because both the video and the shorts covering this topic were so popular, I decided that it would be nice to revisit it, with some cars I did not cover. With all that said, this is AutoFil, and I hope you enjoyed this video. So back in the early 1990s, AMC alongside its brands were acquired by Chrysler following some financial difficulties that AMC had gone through in the previous decade. This gave Chrysler complete control over the Jeep brand, which was what the company truly wanted. Soon enough, the first Jeep to be made under Chrysler ownership was introduced, that being the Grand Cherokee. Now then, before this, Chrysler was planning on giving Dodge a successor to its Ramcharger SUV, which had been in production for nearly 2 decades. These plans for a new Dodge SUV would lead to this prototype being built. Many people refer to it as the ZJ concept, and it definitely has that Dodge spirit. It was going to be much different from the Ramcharger, in the fact that it wasn't necessarily based on a Ram pickup truck, and also had 5 instead of 3 doors. The Dodge ZJ was also evidently inspired by the Jeep Concept 1, a prior concept made by Jeep in 1989, except with Dodge styling. Now then, by the time Dodge had made this concept, Chrysler had already bought AMC and Jeep alongside it, and because the Jeep brand was obviously more profitable and well known than Dodge, Chrysler decided to repurpose the Dodge ZJ as a Jeep, which would eventually become the Grand Cherokee. This basically led to the Dodge SUV's cancellation, and it wouldn't be until 1998 when Dodge finally introduced a new SUV in the form of the Durango. So yeah, that's that. And yes, you may argue that the Dodge ZJ doesn't count as a cancelled car because it was turned into the Jeep Grand Cherokee. And yes, you're right, but I think this made for an interesting car to talk about. Anyway, let's move on. Next up on our list, we have one of the greatest missed opportunities of the 1990s. Back in 1990, BMW introduced their all-new top-of-the-range model, the 8 Series. With a range of V8 and V12 engines and a coupe appearance, it was obvious that the 8 Series was a perfect candidate to turn into a performance model. BMW saw this opportunity and would end up making the M8 prototype in 1991. The M8 was powered by a 6-litre version of the S70 V12 engine and was envisioned as a competitor for Ferrari. The company estimated that the M8 could do 199 miles an hour at most and could produce up to 550 horsepower, making it a very powerful car for its time. However, as the regular 8 Series wasn't selling that well, which may have been caused by the early 1990s recession, BMW figured that the M8 would sell even worse than its regular counterpart, and so decided to tuck it away in storage, never to be seen again. That was until 2012, when BMW decided to finally officially reveal it to the public. Nowadays, one prototype can be found at the Lumen Museum in the Netherlands, while another remains in storage. That's all I have to say about the M8, and it's sad that we never actually got it. It would have been an absolute monster if BMW had produced it, although at least we have the top-of-the-line, high-performance 850 CSI, right? Oh yeah, and there's also the new M8, but that's relevant to this video. Anyway, while we're on the topic of BMW, I've also got to mention the E46 M3 Estate, which for whatever reason did not reach production. According to the official BMW M website, it was only made to see if it was possible to make an M3 on the E46 Estate's platform, and that's probably why it wasn't officially produced. In fact, BMW didn't even reveal it to the public until 2016, which is honestly kind of odd. With all that said, that's enough talking about BMW. Our third car for today is a pretty obscure little automobile. You see, back in 2004, MG Rover had been suffering from some financial trouble and was willing to do anything just to not go bankrupt. One of these things was the Rover 75 Coupe, a prototype shown off that year. The excuse for making it was Rover's 100th anniversary, and the 75 Coupe was basically a gift the company gave themselves, and I'll be honest, I quite like it. I'm a fan of the 75 and I'd love to own one, especially the V8 model. Anyway, coming back to the 75 Coupe, not much is known about its would-be specifications. I guess it would have had a V8 judging by the front fascia derived from the V8 75, but that's really it. Now, something that I've got to talk about is the design. My goodness, is the 75 Coupe breathtaking. I've actually never seen such a good looking car in my life, and I really wish it had made production. If MG Rover hadn't gone under in 2005, I can imagine that this model would have entered production as a luxurious range topper, but as I said, the 75 Coupe sadly wasn't meant to be. Now, before we move on, I do want to quickly mention that someone actually made their own road legal 75 Coupe, and there's an entire article on Autocar if you want to know more about it. I'll leave the link to it in the description, and I might even talk about it in more detail in a possible video about car conversions maybe. Who knows? Our penultimate car for today is an unconventional supercar from an unexpected company. You see, back in 1997, Volkswagen proved that it too could build an all-powerful supercar as good as those from Ferrari or Lambo. Then CEO Ferdinand Piëch appointed Ital Design to design a VW sports car with one of the strangest engines ever, a W12. This led to the Volkswagen W12 Synchro prototype being built that year. The W12 Synchro is called that as it has VW's Synchro all-wheel drive system, and under the hood we can find a mid-mounted 5.6 litre W12 engine producing 414 horsepower. Not only that, but the car even had scissor doors, making it a true supercar. The concept for the W12 was well received, and so Volkswagen followed it up with the W12 Roadster in 1998. This was an open-topped W12 with basically the same specs, the only difference being that the Roadster is rear-wheel drive, not all-wheel drive like its predecessor. Ooh, wow, what a difference. Anyway, the Roadster was also positively received, and 3 years later, the ultimate iteration of the W12 was revealed. This new prototype was named the W12 Nardo, after the Nardo Ring test track in the Italian city of Nardo. Quite a Nardo mouthful, am I right? The W12 Nardo was much more powerful than its predecessors, with 591 horsepower and a 0 to 62 speed of just 3.5 seconds. Given all that, this concept was very well received enough that Volkswagen considered putting the W12 into production. However, they did not, as the supercar market was already crowded, and not only that, but a VW branded supercar would definitely not attract customers due to the brand's status. Instead, the company's officials chose to focus on the Bugatti Veyron, which would end up going into production as basically a Bugatti branded W12, although with a W16 instead of a W12. Even more outrageous, am I right? With all that said, it's honestly sad that the W12 never entered production, but I do see why. Thankfully, all 3 prototypes do still exist, so that's great, at least we have that. That should be enough about the W12, so let's continue, shall we? It's time for our last car, and it's quite an interesting one. Back in 2009, Bugatti showed off its vision of a 4-door ultra-luxurious saloon called the 16C Galibia. This concept was the ultimate luxury saloon with a beautiful design and something that is essential for a luxury car, a reliable and powerful engine. As its name implies, The 16C is powered by a twin supercharged 8-litre W16 engine. That is a crazy engine, and while it's unknown how much horsepower it would have produced, it was once hinted that the Galibia was supposed to produce at least 1,000 horsepower, which is mind-blowing for a saloon of all things. Well, technically fastback, as I guess it has 5 doors, though that's besides the point. Anyway, the 16C was also going to have permanent all-wheel drive, as well as a total of 8 exhaust pipes for some reason. Now then, you're probably wondering why the Bugatti 16C Galibia is in this video. Well, the concept wasn't the only thing Bugatti wanted to make, as the company was already working on a production version of the Galibia that was expected to be named the Royale, after the Type 41 Royale. Originally scheduled for a 2013 release, the production 16C was supposed to have a slightly altered design, with a longer and less curvaceous rear end. In 2011, Bugatti ended up delaying the 16C all the way to 2015 or later to refine the vehicle's design. This would end up sadly leading to the 16C Galibia's ultimate cancellation, which was confirmed in a 2014 interview with then president of Bugatti, Wolfgang Schreiber. The reasons for the cancellation? Well, Bugatti wanted to focus more on the Veyron's successor, which ultimately became the Chiron. So nevertheless, we did end up getting a rather breathtaking car in the end. I just hope that Bugatti one day might reconsider making a 4-door saloon, as it would be very nice to see one from them. Thank you so much for watching today's video. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, make sure to like and subscribe. If you have any video ideas, feel free to share them in the comments. Having said that, this is AutoFil, see you later.